So I want it to be clear from the get-go. Every moment of your life is absolutely valuable. Now, as you're sitting and listening to this voice, this moment will never repeat itself again. And don't even assume that the next moment will be coming. This is a disease of the mind, to have this myopic belief that tomorrow is always coming. And in the daydreams of the mind, one has come to believe that that there's an infinite series of tomorrow in a waiting line which stretches on forever and ever, just simply because it's not something that's embedded into our culture to contemplate very deeply upon death. So therefore, from a very young age and onwards, we have a growing insensitivity towards the subject. And if you have an insensitivity towards the reality of death, you'll become insensitive towards yourself, insensitive towards other people, insensitive to the world at large. You will lose the holistic context of life. I want to be clear about this, that first and foremost, let's get something straight. It's not my fear of death, it's not your fear of death, it's not his or her fear of death. It's something we've all inherited. It's not even the fear of death of the whole humanity, it's the fear of death of the entire kingdom of life. Even the fish have the fear of death. So, it's just the other side of the coin of the will to live. Because of the will to live, there's the fear of death. And that's programmed in the human body and other bodies because it ensures the survival of an organism. So it's among the most difficult hindrances to overcome, this fear of death. And as you go through contemplating more and more on the subject, you will have an increasing familiarity about your own feelings towards the subject. Yes, everybody, more or less, children aside maybe, is aware of the fact that one day the body is going to die. How many people are truly at ease with this reality? How many of them are familiar about, okay, am I truly willing to let go of this body? And everything, all the memories that this mind has accumulated, ultimately ashes to ashes, dust to dust, part of the impermanence of life. Time marches forward, completely regardless of however you've been living your life. Whether you're a good man, whether you're a bad man, whether you're a sage or whether you're a fool. Time simply marches forward mercilessly. So, it's part of the cosmic impermanent stream of existence that we must age. It's due to entropy, the tendency for things to move from order to greater and greater disorder. So, systems must inevitably break down. There's so many benefits that can be derived from contemplation on death, if only you have the courage to look at the reality head on. One thing is that it will enhance your ability to put your life in the proper context. Knowing, okay, in this life I have only this amount of time that's allotted to me, therefore time now becomes an immensely valuable resource. So you start thinking, how can I more wisely be making use of my time? Wisely in a way where I'm really addressing the essentials of human well-being, my own well-being, and hopefully I can leave behind a legacy of sorts, a legacy which can also elevate the human condition. When I say leaving behind a legacy, I don't mean like doing fireworks, becoming famous, or receiving accolades or rewards or something like that. No. What could it mean? Well, something as simple as, for example, a child, raising a child and embedding within him all of the necessary tools to pass through this life gracefully. Because the tools of self-knowledge, the tools for meditation, of inquiry, because it's not just about that one child. By embedding these qualities within a single child, you are potentially setting in motion an influence that could spread through generations and generations of lives. That can be one way to leave behind a legacy. It doesn't have to be, like I said, some great, magnificent production. So now you start thinking, okay, how can I be more wise with the time that I have allotted to me? The benefits of contemplating on death are tremendous. It's just that you must have the courage to be honest with this truth. In all likelihood, you're very deeply identified with the body. And one day, and everything, by the way, which often defines your sense of self, is body oriented and very much physical in a way. The impressions that we've received from the outside world are physical in nature. The self-image even that we've created in the mind is also physical. You can't see it. It's invisible. It's very, very subtle, like particles, like atoms in the air. But nevertheless, it still has a physical existence. So, it's part, and that's not really actually the true fear of death. It's not losing the body. It's surrendering the authority of your self-image. That's the real death. The death of the illusion of self. And it's not something meditators are unfamiliar with. That as they go deeper and deeper into meditation and they are starting to lose the sensation of the boundaries of the body, they feel like they're going to die. And then they slowly retreat back to the lighter stages of the meditation. So the loss of control is the loss of authority. And the loss of authority is a great threat to the structure of the ego. But by contemplating on death, oh my God, it's truly medicine for the mind. Well, one thing that you will cultivate out of regular contemplation on death is a feeling which can best be described as an urgency. An urgency to be immensely involved in the present moment. And then, when you enjoy, don't think that this is going to be such sheer anguish and misery confronting the fear. You might go through a very uncomfortable process of systematically, slowly, more and more letting go and letting go. And then there's the struggle to let go. So you might go through an uncomfortable process and you are face to face with the sheer meaninglessness of life. Ultimately, all sentient beings must one day die. And time just marches on. This earth is just a pale blue dot hanging in the womb of space. So we are not particularly important on this planet, regardless of what some religions might say. Oh, the world was created for the sake of man, like in the story of Genesis. The dinosaurs were once the dominant species. Now they're no more. Now we're the dominant species. There is no cosmic scheme that this universe was specifically created for man. So obviously, human life is meaningless. But that doesn't have to become a source of tremendous suffering. It may cause a sense of despair and anguish for existentialist philosophers who've looked very deeply on the subject. But in the yogic sciences, we've had a very systematic approach to this. Yes, contemplation on death will give rise to a feeling of meaninglessness, which is called Samveda. However, it must be balanced out with another quality, which is the faith in the potential that there is a way out of suffering, that you need not be a slave to your sufferings if only you inquire more and more deeply into the nature of self. There is a possibility of discovering a dimension within you which is that of pure liberation. And that is inseparable from the nature of your consciousness. Your consciousness from first to last has always been liberated. Think of your consciousness kind of like, let's say, the substance of empty space. Empty space contains this world and many worlds and many galaxies and stars and planets, and yet it transcends the boundaries of all of that. Your consciousness is precisely the same way. It contains all your thought processes and emotions. Everything is coming and going, arising from the void, returning to the void, but always this empty spaciousness of consciousness remains untouched. So therefore, within yourself, you have an invisible nirvana. If you're in contact with it, then things like the fear of death become totally irrelevant. So that's why you have some practices like in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where the deceased person would be sitting next to you, and the monk will start reading passages from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and with many pointers and reminders. For example, now you're passing through the bardo states, the states of consciousness after death of the body. You might experience horrible visions, frightening, some wonderful and illuminating. But you must have a recognition that all of these manifestations are none other than the projections of your own mind. Keep that knowledge in mind and become more and more centered in the empty space in which all of this is manifesting, which is consciousness. Then those images lose their hold and power, and they simply fade away silently. What's beautiful about Tibetan Book of the Dead is that, yes, you can say or no, you can say it's too much concerned with metaphysical thinking, but all of that can be easily as well applied to this life. And if there is a continuity of consciousness after death of the body, there's no harm in being prepared. So, this fear of death, I really encourage all of you who are watching this right now, start the journey. Start looking into it. It's really worth digging deeper. It will be uncomfortable at times. It will challenge you. It will put you in a position of inconvenience where, oh my God, now you're shocked. You're shocked at how you have been living life for so long, completely oblivious to this. And you've allowed yourself to fall constantly in cycles of darkness. But have faith. There's definitely a way out. You just have to dig deeper and deeper. Because, as I've just said before, it's not death of the body which is the real source of the fear. No sentient life has ever been terrified of the death of the body. That's just a phantom. That's irrelevant. It's the illusion of self. The same thing which has become a cause of much suffering throughout the course of life. So, through your contemplations on death, you'll have an increasing sensitivity to the value of this present moment. And then when you enjoy, you will enjoy unconditionally. Not because you had some taste of sweetness in the past and now you're seeking to imitate or simulate that memory. Not because you have some daydream about the future, but truly enjoying this present moment with absolute acceptance. And it's very surprising to me how So many things are happening in the name of celebration, but very few are experiencing the kind of celebration that I'm talking about. An unconditional enjoyment, which is basically this: accepting and letting go every moment, accepting and letting go, accept and letting go. You're not even trying to let go, because whether you let go or whether you don't let go, the stream of impermanence continues. It continues within you, it continues within the universe at large. So it's a very, in a sense, it's a very gentle way of being. You're not even moving with the stream. That suggests a dualism. There's you and the stream. You are the stream. And when you acknowledge and truly live it, consciousness is a stream, then any overwhelming thought process or emotion, without the interference of the ego, it's only a matter of time before it loses its power and authority. Please do some research, look at what some scientific studies have been saying about this. For any emotion that arises, of course it varies from emotion to emotion. They say that sadness can be the most possessive and elongated emotions, but on the whole, on average, any emotion will last, without the interference of the ego, around 90 seconds. So there are chemical reactions that are happening in the body, and these chemical reactions, the sheer mechanism of things is they have a life cycle. They have a starting point, they have a natural ending point, and the body is self-sufficient as to what to do with this chemistry. But no, it's the interference of the ego which often makes certain emotions and thought processes infectious. So learn the value of looking at the fear of death. There's 5 remembrances that Gautama Buddha gave to his disciples, and I would like for you also to remember them. As is the nature of change, one day the body must grow old. Secondly, as is the nature of change, one day the body must become ill. Thirdly, as is the nature of change, one day the body must die. Fourthly, as is the nature of change, I must learn to let go of everything that I hold dear and beloved to my heart. I must inevitably be separated from them. And finally, I and I alone am the inheritor of my actions and their consequences. The 5th one is extremely helpful because it's a call to assume responsibility. And if there's any one message I would like for you to really absorb today, it's assuming absolute responsibility. Don't squander the time. It's very valuable. And you're carrying within yourself an immense cosmic wealth if only you have the means to tap into this wealth. Everything that you have been seeking, without knowing exactly what it is you're seeking. You're seeking freedom. And the greatest source of freedom lies from within. So seize the opportunity, carpe diem, seize the day.